Hi there, welcome back to another video on my channel, and welcome back to my office with my big collection of Pokemon stuffed animals slash Squishmallows. Yeah, I just want y'all to know, I did collect Squishmallows for a long time, but ever since the CEO talked about their support of Israel, I haven't really bought a new Squishmallow just because I am somebody who would like to call for a ceasefire of and I have not been a fan of what's been going on in the Middle East for quite some time. So I haven't bought any new Squishmallows. So if you see them here, um, that's just kind of my disclaimer. I've had them before that announcement, and I haven't bought any since. So yeah. Anyway, but they're still here. I still have them. Yeah. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. Today I'm going to be talking about a controversial thing, I guess. I don't know. But I'm going to be talking about Palworld and Pokemon. So wish me luck. Anyway, so I don't know if you know, if you're in the know, if you're not. Basically, I assume most of you guys watching know what Pokemon is. Um, but if you don't know what Palworld is a game that came out recently, and it has faced some criticism because a lot of their monster designs look like Pokemon designs, just recolored or repackaged in some way. So I was, thinking about like talking about this and like my opinions on this. And I know everyone and their mother has had an opinion on this about whether or not this is like stealing or like if Nintendo has grounds for like copyright infringement or whatever. Because I believe that Nintendo has tried to sue the people who make Palworld in the past over their designs. And that didn't really go through because they decided that this was like a different enough game for it to not be a blatant ripoff of Pokemon. And yeah, I just want to talk about that in general or whatever, because this is hard for me. I'm such a big, strong Pokemon fan. I've been a Pokemon fan since childhood. I have Pokemon themed tattoos on me, and obviously, this is like a hobby of mine, and this is something I'm really passionate about. But I don't know. I've been watching game theories of Palworld. I haven't played myself because well, let me backpedal a little bit. If you haven't heard of Palworld is basically a survival game with a creature catching mechanic. A survivor based game is kind of like Minecraft. I'm sure a lot of survivor game players probably didn't like that I used Minecraft as my first reference, but it's a popular game and it's one I know, where there's not really like a storyline. You just kind of play to survive. So uh, what kind of mechanics are in survivor games, like resource management, farming mechanics, crafting and building. So I have played games that are survivor game adjacent, I would say. Like I don't know if Animal Crossing counts as a survivor game. I don't really think so, but you like with Animal Crossing New Horizons, you can craft and you can farm within the game. And then you also like fish, collect things, you have resources. Obviously, survivor games are more intense. Like you don't actually die in Animal Crossing, but you can die in Palworld, right? Like you can get attacked by an enemy and die. And like Minecraft, if like you don't go to sleep at night, and if you're not in a shelter at night, there's bigger monsters or something that could potentially harm you. So this is like more wilderness survival. It's way more hardcore than Animal Crossing. I know I gave that as an example, but yeah, that was just something within my wheelhouse I can compare it to. Um, the thing that brought Palworld, or what got people really hyped about Palworld, was like fact that it was like basically branded as Pokemon with guns. And this is the part that makes me feel a little icky. Is that yeah, you as a human, right? You can customize your character, which is like also a great bonus. I love character customization. But anyway, you as a person are in this world, and obviously there's monsters around you. You got to catch and tame, and you catch them in a ball, very much like Pokemon. And but in order to weaken them, you kind of have to hit them with like an axe or a bat or a gun or a bow and arrow or some form of weapon or even your fist, right? Like you physically have to hit them and to weaken them prior to catching them. And it's similar in Pokemon, except you don't actually physically hit them. You have another Pokemon to attack for you, so it's more of like Pokemon and Pokemon crime. I guess, I don't know. There's been animal rights groups that have called Pokemon cruel and glorified like animal violence or whatever. And I always thought those people were kind of silly, truthfully. Like, even growing up, I was like, y'all are worried about nothing. This is what. But now I find myself feeling that kind of way about Palworld, and maybe I'm a hypocrite. Maybe it is. But like, I don't want to shoot a cute animal with a gun. That that's just not something I look forward to in gameplay. That is not like, oh yeah, I love this mechanic. This is what I've been craving. No, I have never craved shooting cute fictional creatures with a gun before. So that's why I don't think I've played Palworld yet, just because that part I dislike. And that seems to be a core mechanic of the game, of you physically getting involved in the fighting and the battling of these monsters. Not only that, but you can also, I don't mind fighting other people, fuck other people. Like, there's other humans in this game, which I find to be a little weird, but that's okay. But you can actually capture the other humans and make them do chores for you on your bases. So you basically have a base. You can have multiple bases, from what I understand. But you have a base, and part of the resource management and farming is done by the pals that you capture. Which, again, this isn't new for me. I know people have joked about, like, oh, now you're using slave labor in this game. You kind of are, but this isn't the first or the last game to really come up with that. A game that I'm going to bring up that I actually enjoy, that I think is an interesting addition to this debate between Pokemon and Palworld, is Ooblets. So Ooblets is a game I really enjoy, and it's super addicting. It's a lot of fun, but it basically has elements of both these games. So in Ooblets, you arrive to a town and you're their farmer, and you have to manage your crops and water them or whatever. In order to make the game easier on yourself, you have the option to task the Ooblets you catch, or that you, yeah, you don't really catch them in a ball. Ooblets is okay. Ooblets is basically like Pokemon without battling. Instead of fighting each other, you do dance battles. So these little critters just kind of like dance, and it's a turn-based card mechanic, and that does the dance moves. So it's a Pokemon-esque game, but not really, because it's got its own unique art style, and I think that's why it hasn't gotten as much heat as Palworld. It has its own unique art style and battle mechanic, where it's dance battles, and it has cards that you play. So it's still got that strategy-based, turn-based element to it. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh, well, you use Ubas as slave labor too in that game, technically, because they tend your farm for you. They help water your crops. You know, they live in a little, you can build them like a little farmhouse, and then they go out and they got the little farmer hats on and they just start tending to your crops. So, do you use slave labor in that game too? Yeah. Is it still cute? Yeah. So that part doesn't necessarily bother me as much, especially if they're pets and I'm like, okay, they're just my children. They're contributing to the household. Great. They're my roommates. Cool. Um, yeah. So, but it's just for me, and like, okay, the exploration on Palworld's really cool too. It's got a big open world map, and it's got different bosses you can fight. And this is a similar mechanic as what Pokemon try to employ in Legends Arceus, and I think that's the root of the problem here, because Pokemon has been trying, or recently has been trying to employ that some survival-based mechanics, or at least trying to make Pokemon a little bit scarier, I guess. Because in Legends Arceus, you can explore a map, and there's like little mini bosses in each area, right? And you can catch or battle the bosses for a chance at like a higher level Pokemon, or like a bigger one, right? Um, because they were like in Legends Arceus, they were kind of like frenzied Pokemon or whatever. And in Legends Arceus, it did encourage you to catch multiples of one species to achieve quests and stuff like that. But the thing is, instead of like killing them for resources, you just kind of like let them go if you have too many in your party or whatever. And I guess that's the main difference for me, where I am not as enthusiastic about Palworld, is because you know, they don't die either technically. You know, Pokemon always says like, oh, you don't kill them, they just faint and like go away. Um, and and the thing in the game is that they kind of like disappear, so you don't really feel bad about it. But in Palworld, like you hit them, you physically beat them until they are incapacitated, right, or they faint. You get the resources, but then their bodies just kind of lay there for a while. That's the part I don't like. I'm not into that. And like apparently you could do that with people too. You could beat the crap out of them. You can capture people and actually put them on your farm. You can do some more unhinged stuff in Palworld. Like you can use some of them for shields. I've seen one person I'm watching their playthrough have used them as like a flamethrower. Um, that's not as unhinged, but I've seen some pretty unhinged stuff in that game. And I just I'm like, why? I don't know. Maybe I think that I operate a certain way where like I understand games are escapism to folks, and they're definitely an escapism for me too. Like I've been gaming as a hobby, but I'm more of like a cozy gamer, or I play games where I still feel like I can do good and have like a good impact on somebody. So some of my favorite games right now are Spiritfarer. I love that game, and Cozy Grove. And in both of those games, you're kind of helping like ghosts uh, move on to the other side, right? Which ultimately is an act of good, and you learn about these stories of these characters. And I finished Spiritfarer, but I haven't finished Cozy Grove yet. I'm currently playing that, and that's been my favorite game. I've been in a gaming slump for a while, and that's really gotten me out of it. So I love Cozy Grove for that. But yeah, it's learning about these people and helping them move on and doing tasks for them. So in my ideal fantasy world, I would still do some sort of like I would still contribute to good. So I don't and I'm not trying to be like oh I'm superior or I'm morally no, I'm not. I'm just saying that that's what my gameplay looks like, right? Being a positive influence. So when it comes to like unhinged stuff that you can do, I'm like I cognitively can't be like why would I want to do that? you know? Um I just can't. So there's some elements of Palworld that I just don't think I can get behind, and unfortunately, some of those aspects tend to be key mechanisms in the game, like physically beating the shit out of pals. Yeah. So we kind of went over the differences between Pokemon and Palworld. So I think Palworld it is a separate game because of the mechanics. Yes. I don't think it's equatable to a Pokemon game based on mechanics. Do I still think it's a creature capture game? Yeah, but like those sorts of games have existed for a while. I think there's even one called Dungeon Quest or Dungeon Master or something like that that is a predecessor to Pokemon. And you know, I've seen some people online make the argument that like, well, Pokemon then stole these designs from the Dungeon Dragon Quest, whatever it's called. I'll put the pictures on here when I find them. Um, some people argued, well, if we're going to say Palworld copied the designs from there, Pokemon copied these designs, blah blah blah. I don't necessarily feel that way because I think some of these older designs are kind of gross. Uh, but again, it's just like aesthetics, right? And it's hard because Pokemon really, after 20 something years and having so many different artists come work and design Pokemon for them, they don't really have a concrete aesthetic anymore. So, you know, it's hard because it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that looks like Pokemon because Pokemon, there's been so many of them. There's like over 1,000 Pokemon now. So it's kind of easy to make that argument. I'm not defending Palworld, but like, yeah, it's easy to make that argument. But it's just hard because I've seen some examples of some pals in this universe, and I can look at that and be like, oh, that's this Pokemon, right? Like it's like a one for one. Like that looks like a Lucario, that looks like Ditto, you know, or whatever. Um, some of the pals no, I think it's their own unique things, but you can definitely pick out examples that are like, yeah, that looks like a Pokemon. Um, so I don't know. I think that's kind of cheap, but again, you know, I don't know. I feel like that could have been a self-editing thing, where they were like, well, this is getting too close to Pokemon territory. Let's maybe add an extra appendage or something to really like, you know, to make the so this isn't like a recognizable thing anymore. But again, that would have required extra effort in editing. And also, let's be so for real. Their marketing would have suffered because the whole marketing of this game was the shock value of having Pokemon with guns, at least in my opinion. I think that was like the main point of the marketing, and I think that's what got what got people interested in this is because of the controversy with Pokemon. I think that was a marketing strategy from the get, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? People they made money off of people getting mad, and it's really successful, and there was a lot of downloads, and good for them, I guess. I don't know, but That's what it is. Like, this is purposely supposed to make you mad. Rage baiting is such a thing now, and I don't know why. I mean, there's probably a million reasons why, but rage baiting as a form of engagement is super popular right now. You have online trolls been doing this on Twitter forever, but like also now actual companies and big people are starting to feed into rage marketing. Like, I heard something this morning about Demi Lovato singing "Heart Attack" at like an American Heart Association. Like, girl, what the fuck? so so yeah, it's nothing new. This was part of the marketing strategy. I'm convinced of it, and I don't care what the reps say. I think this some of that was purposeful. Was it every single one? No, but I think they threw in enough to get people agitated about like the fact that these critters look so much like Pokemon. I think that was purposeful. Now, should there be repercussions for this? Like, that's the question, right? Like, I think I know Pokemon went after some modders because I think people were modding Pokemon into that game. And then I think that, like, yeah, that makes sense. So why they would go after that, and like why Palworld should be careful of people modding that, because now that they've made that comparison, right, consciously, people are going to obviously do that. So just being aware of that. Like, I don't know. Um, yeah, but maybe I'll play Palworld. I don't know. Again, I'm not a big fan of me physically harming the other critters and other people. Um, but I do think that this is an opportunity though for Pokemon to grow and like try to like develop more mechanics within their game or be creative with their games, because a lot of fans have been complaining about like especially with Scarlet and Violet, girl. Hello, what were those games? Like, let's be so fair, what were those games? I mean, like, the story was good. They really put effort into writing characters this time, but in terms of like the graphics and the mechanics and like the whole open worldness of it, it did not hit the way some of these other games were hitting. And Legends Arceus was such a great thing, and I think if they made more games that were kind of like a midway between Palworld and Legends Arceus, they would probably get a lot of more fans excited. But it's hard because Pokemon really hasn't had a whole lot of competition in a while, and some people are referencing Palworld as a potential competitor for Pokemon, and I don't think that's the case. I mean, you'd have to really, really have a lot of longevity um, to become a competitor for a franchise that's been going on for 20 plus years. I mean, they kind of took out Digimon. They outlasted Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh and like all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, who knows? What do I know? So yeah, that's kind of like my discussion about Pokemon and Palworld. I just kind of wanted to throw out like just talk about everything that's been going on and like make comparisons for myself and like share with you guys how I feel about Palworld as a Pokemon fan. I don't really feel like a lot of people feel really strongly about this. I like felt strongly, and then I watched gameplays, and then I was like, oh well, I don't really feel as strongly about this anymore. And maybe I'll play it, maybe I won't. I don't know, but I just don't think it's a game for me personally, and that's okay. Now everything's meant for me, so it is what it is. But if you want to see more Palworld type content on here, let me know. Comment down below, subscribe to the channel, engage with this video, like, comment, share with a friend. All that will let me know that's what kind of content I should be making on here, if you know what I mean. Yeah, all the engagement will let me know what kind of content you guys want to see and what I should be posting more of. So yeah, I thank you guys so much for the support for this channel, and until next time, thanks, bye.